All right, so are you ready for this?
Always. Hit me with it.
Okay, so this one is Halloween costumes and firefighters.
Oh.
Yeah, you know where this is going.
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be a good one.
A good one for a deep dive, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, so you sent us this Newsweek article about a firefighter's Halloween party.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This one is wild.
That is wild.
It's in Nova Scotia, Canada,
Right.
and it did not go well.
Not well at all.
Not well at all, no.
So some of the attendees thought it would be a good idea to show up
Oh, boy.
in what appeared to be Ku Klux Klan costumes.
Yikes.
Yeah. And the internet did what the internet does.
Right. Meltdown.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, it's pretty understandable, though, right? Like, that imagery is just,
it's awful.
it's really awful.
Yeah, so let's, break this down a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
According to the article, 4 individuals wearing white robes and these,
Yeah, pointed hats.
pointed hats, very clearly resembling KKK attire, attended the party at the North Sydney Firefighters Club.
And you can imagine, like I said, social media just exploded.
Oh, yeah.
People were calling the costumes out. They were saying, this is blatant racism. How could you let these people in?
Yeah, the article mentions one user who wrote, and this is a direct quote, "This is not a mistake. This is blatant racism. They should have never been let in."
It's really disheartening, you know?
Yeah,
Like, it's 2024. You'd think we'd be past this.
you really would. You'd hope so.
But clearly we're not.
So the North Sydney Firefighters Club, they did issue an apology on Facebook saying these people weren't members of the club.
Okay, that's something at least.
Yeah, and promising to be better, but, a lot of people are saying, well, actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. And it's not enough to just apologize. You got to actually do something to change.
Right. So the article also has some quotes from the fire chief, Lloyd McIntosh, and the deputy fire chief, Wade Guthrow.
Okay, what do they have to say?
Well, McIntosh admits that the volunteers at the party did allow these people in. They tried to get them to take off their hoods and even tried to confiscate a cross.
Wow, so they knew it was bad.
Seems like it,
And they
right?
still let them in. I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's really confusing.
Yeah, it is big time.
And then Guthrow, he expressed remorse
Okay.
and denied that there was any racist intent. He said that he wasn't actually working that night and the costumes basically slipped through.
Slipped through, huh?
Yeah, and he even said, when we have Halloween dances, you never know what you are going to see come through the door. Most times we think, it is a costume, without really thinking of the big picture or the past it represents. So when you folks comment that they shouldn't have gotten in and that we need to do better, you are right, and we will.
I mean, it's good that he's acknowledging they need to do better.
Right.
But, brushing something off is just a costume,
Doesn't really cut it.
especially when it's something as loaded as this.
Yeah, it makes you think about all the other times in history when people have said, it's just a joke or it's just a costume, and it ended up having really terrible consequences.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about like blackface minstrelsy.
Oh, yeah.
That was considered entertainment back in the day, but now we recognize it as deeply offensive and racist.
Exactly.
And that's what's so interesting about this case, right? It's this tension between what people intend and the actual impact of their actions.
Right, the firefighters are saying they didn't mean to cause harm, but come on, those costumes, they just bring up so much pain and history.
Yeah, it's like they're completely ignoring the very real pain and suffering that the KKK represents.
So it's not just about having fun at a Halloween party. It's about understanding that symbols have power.
And that our actions have consequences.
Right, and this whole thing brings up another really important issue, cultural appropriation.
Yeah, this story is a textbook example of that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that. Can you kind of break it down for me and for our listener?
Sure. So cultural appropriation is basically when one culture takes elements from another culture and uses them without really understanding or respecting their original meaning.
Mm.
And, a lot of times it involves a power imbalance.
Oh, like a dominant culture taking from a marginalized culture.
Yeah, exactly.
And that can end up trivializing or even mocking the traditions and experiences of that culture.
Right. And so in this case, you could argue that the people wearing those KKK costumes were appropriating a symbol of hate and oppression.
Yeah, and completely disregarding the pain and suffering that the KKK has caused.
Exactly.
And so here we are again talking about intent versus impact.
Yeah, because even if they didn't intend to cause harm, the fact is they did.
Just by wearing those costumes.
By wearing those costumes, yeah, they evoked all these feelings of fear and anger and hurt.
Especially for people who've been directly affected by the KKK.
Right. It's like they're saying it's just a costume.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, it's so much more than that.
It's a symbol of real pain and suffering and real fear.
Yeah. And it brings up that whole it's just a costume argument.
Which never really seems to hold up, does it?
Not in cases like this, no.
So when does a costume cross the line from harmless fun to something that's actually harmful?
That's the question, isn't it? It's a tough one.
It is. There's no easy answer.
No. But I think this case really shows that we need to be way more aware and sensitive about this stuff.
Especially when it comes to costumes that deal with sensitive cultural or historical issues.
Right. It's like what we were talking about earlier. Our choices have consequences.
Even the ones we think are insignificant.
Even the ones we think are just fun and games.
You have to think about the impact they might have on others.
It's all about empathy,
Yeah.
you know?
Putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Exactly. Asking yourself, how might this costume be perceived by someone who's had a different life experience than me?
That's so important.
It really is.
And this story really got people talking not just about this one incident, but about these bigger issues like cultural appropriation and the limits of free speech.
It's like this one party, it just opened up this whole can of worms about society and who we are.
It makes you think about how these seemingly isolated events are actually connected to these much larger issues.
Absolutely. And it forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves.
Like, how do we balance individual freedom with the responsibility to not cause harm to others?
That's a tough one. Right.
Where do we draw the line between humor and offense?
Especially in a world where everyone's connected and there's so much diversity.
Those are some big questions.
They are, but they're important questions, and we got to be willing to talk about them.
Not just online, but in our everyday lives.
We got to be willing to listen to each other, to try to understand different perspectives.
And to acknowledge that history and context, they matter.
They really do. They shape how we see the world.
It's a reminder that even when we think we're just relaxing and having fun,
Like at a Halloween party?
yeah, our choices still matter.
They always matter.
And it's not just about not offending people.
It's about understanding the impact our actions can have.
On other people,
On other people, exactly.
this whole thing has really been eye-opening.
It has. It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it makes you think like we're always so careful about what we say.
Right.
But sometimes we forget that our actions,
Oh, yeah.
they can be just as powerful, if not more so.
Totally. Like in this case, the costume, that was the message.
Regardless of what they meant to say.
Right. Actions speak louder, you know?
And it's interesting because it happened at a Halloween party
Oh, yeah.
where people are kind of letting loose.
You let your guard down, right?
Yeah, and you think anything goes.
But it doesn't. And this case really proves that.
Yeah, we can't just turn off our awareness,
Well,
even
yeah.
when we're trying to have fun.
No, we're always responsible for what we do, you know?
It's a tough lesson.
It is, but it's an important one.
So this isn't just about some Halloween party that went wrong.
No, it's bigger than that.
It's about remembering that we're all part of something bigger.
A community, a society,
Right, and our choices, even the small ones.
they all matter.
They all have an impact.
Yeah, we have to remember that.
So where do we draw the line?
That's the question, isn't it?
Between harmless fun and actually doing harm?
Yeah, who gets to decide that?
What do you think? What are your thoughts for our listener?
Well, it's tough, right?
Mm.
There's no easy answer. What's fun for one person might be really hurtful to someone else. But I think the key is to just be thoughtful.
To really think about our choices.
Yeah, even when we're just trying to relax and have fun, think about it. Does my costume, does what I'm doing, does it make fun of someone?
Could it hurt someone's feelings?
Yeah, those are the questions we should be asking.
Not just at Halloween, but all the time.
All the time, because we want to build a world where everyone feels respected, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's a great place to leave it, Let's use this incident as a way to be more aware.
More empathy.
And let's try to create a world where everyone feels safe and respected.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It starts with each of us, Let's be the changing.
Well said. And that wraps up another deep dive. Thanks for listening, everyone.